What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Alex. Shout out to the Elite Fleet. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can become a member of the Elite Fleet. And I'm going to answer this question that was asked to me. Going forward, make sure you follow direction and email the questions and do not just write a question in my comments, because what was happening before, which is why I asked people to just start emailing the questions, is just a bunch of questions in the comments. I don't want my comments filled with a bunch of questions. But I am going to answer this one. And I'm going to forewarn you before I even get started, bro. It's going to seem like I'm cooking you, but I'm not cooking you. I want you to stay subscribed and I want you to keep asking questions. I'm educating you. I'm not cooking you. So with that being said, let's get straight into it. He said, you made an interesting comment about sexual deviancy. Question, should a woman date a man with a high body count? Please do a video on that. And so let's get straight into it. So first of all, let's just define what I consider to be sexual deviancy. Because to me, that's important before I even answer the other question. Now, I'm not going to take long. I just want to do it quick. So to me, someone who's a sexual deviant is someone who behaves in sexual behaviors or fantasies that deviate from the norms and expectations of society or culture, right? So for example, if you're a PDF file, considered a sexual deviant, if you're going to freak offs, right? And you just, you're sleeping with 5 people in a night and just passing people off, right? Or you're wife swapping. You like to share your wife, right? Or you're getting a train ran on you, and by a train I don't even mean 2 men at once. I mean a real choo-choo train. I mean like you're in the room getting pounded out and it's 5, 10, 15 men outside of the room waiting to be next. Right? If you like to have your nipples electrocuted or put clamps on them and shit like that, I consider these things to be sexual deviancy, right? I consider someone being bisexual to be a sexual deviancy because you don't even know what you like. You just like whatever's around at the time. You'll sleep with anything. You don't got no type. I consider that to be sexual deviancy, which is really where that question came from. I'm pretty sure this is a guy because a woman wouldn't even ask a question about body counts. And when I get into that, we're going to explain why, as this said, a woman wouldn't even ask a question about body counts. But maybe he's a bisexual guy and maybe he just assumed that, you have all these women on your channel. So I'm going to say, do you consider a man with a high body count to be a sexual deviant? I don't know. But at the end of the day, either way, the reason I consider bisexual people to be sexual deviants is because they don't have a type. They're just freaks. They'll sleep with men, they'll sleep with women, and that's not normal. Like, I don't even consider. Now, I know if you're going by like religion, particularly like the Bible or the Quran or I forgot the name of the Torah, right? Then yes, they would consider anyone to be LGBTQ plus to be a sexual deviant. But me personally, if you're a lesbian, I don't consider you a sexual deviant. You're a woman who likes women. That's fine to me, right? I don't consider that too far outside of the normal. Obviously being hetero would be considered normal, but if you're a woman who likes women, okay, you just like women. That's how it turned out for you, right? If you're a gay man and you just like men, that's how it turned out for you. I'm not going to call you a deviant for that unless you're engaging in some of the other behaviors that I was just talking about on top of it. Personally, I don't think any man or woman should be with somebody who likes both sexes because nobody can be both sexes. So at a certain point, this person's undateable because they're going to want something you can't give. If a woman has been with and enjoyed her time with women and men, she's going to want something you can't give as a woman or a man. So you're going to be getting cheated on. If a man enjoys being sexually with men and women, eventually at a certain point, he's going to want something you can't give, whether you're a man or a woman. So you're going to get cheated on. So that's why I'm like, these guys, they're unpleasurable. They're undateable. They're sexual deviants. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means their sexual appetite cannot be satisfied and you should avoid them. Now, let's get back into the real question where he goes, should a woman date a man with a high body count? So that would mean that he considers someone with a high body count a sexual deviant. Now, here's my thing. I don't have a problem with people liking sex. So your body count would have to be extremely high for me to consider you a sexual deviant. Like, I'm talking, if you're a woman, for example, and you're 30 years old, you have 30 bodies, I'm not going to call you a sexual deviant for that, right? Because really, if you do the math, a woman who's 30 years old with 30 bodies, that's like a body a year. You know what I mean? So it's like, am I going to call you a deviant for that? No. I'll call you promiscuous, but I'm not going to call you a deviant for that. And so vice versa. Now if you have a man, for example, who he's 30 years old and he has like 70 bodies, 60 bodies, yeah, I would call him a deviant. He has an insatiable appetite. Absolutely. But here's the reality of the situation. You're very rarely to never going to run into a man in his 30s with a body count anywhere near that high. Like, women have higher body counts than men, and their body counts generally aren't going into like the 60s and the 70s. Because the thing about it is, eventually, and this is coming from a man who doesn't have a problem getting women to bed, you're going to get tired of it. You're going to get tired of chasing skirts and switching out women and dealing with all those personalities. It's going to take a mental toll on you, a spiritual toll on you. So what's naturally going to happen, this is for men and women, is you're going to get into a relationship, and that's going to save time off. Or you're going to get into a rotation where you're dealing with like one or two people, right, consistently. And that's going to shave time off. So the likelihood you're going to run into men or women with like 60 plus body counts, you know, slim to none. It's very slim to none. Most of the people aren't going to get that high. And as far as men go, when we ask the question about whether or not women should be dating a man with a high body count, you have to understand most men don't have a high body count. We're in a time right now where there's more virgin men who are, 26 and younger than there are virgin women. Let it breathe, run it back. We are in a time right now where there are more virgin men who are 26 and younger than there are virgin women. So when you talk about body count, the average man is struggling to really take down double digits amounts of women. The average man can't do that. For the most part, you're going to have to be a man who is in the 20% to even get to those types of numbers. Most men can't even go on a dating app and get 50 matches and get 2 dates. Now you have men who are exceptions to those rules. Like I can go on a dating app, and I've showed the receipts on the channel. I can get like 200 matches on Tinder and like 300 matches on Hinge, right? And I can convert those easily into dates. But even with dealing that, once you start to get into all the other nuances that goes into sleeping with somebody, most men, they can't do that. They'll tell you themselves. Most men cannot do that. So knowing how competitive it is for a man to get with women, because every man wants a woman, men are horny, testosterone's pumping. A woman walks outside, she's getting hollered at by like 10 to 15 men every single day, right? So she has the right to use discretion. So that just makes it's more competitive for men to get a woman than it is for a woman to get a man. A woman can a woman can sleep with a millionaire. She ain't gonna be able to bag him, but she can sleep with him if she look like something, pretty easily. It's not hard for women to get deep. So they get bored of it quick. They get all out their system early. It's harder for men. It's more competitive for men. So most men do not even have a high body count. Now, should a woman date a man who does happen to have a high body count? No, she shouldn't. I mean, if he has an astronomically high body count, of course she shouldn't date him. But I would say this. The reason I said earlier a woman would never even ask this question is because women already have systems in place to assure that they're not going to be sleeping with a dude who has an astronomically high body count. Right? Like they already have systems in place that's going to ensure that that's not going to happen. Right? Because women, their typical dating strategy is, I'm going to sleep with the hot guys, which would be the guys who have the high body counts, right? The guys that y'all would call bad boys for the most part, or the rich dudes, right? They're going to get that out of their system early. They know these dudes are sleeping around, and they don't take these dudes serious. Every now and then they'll fall for them. But generally speaking, they don't take them serious. Like, by the time they're ready to get married or in a relationship, they purposely go out and they switch their dating style and they purposely look for men who don't have a lot of experience because they want to be the apple of their husband's eye. So I'm saying that to say most women, when they're ready to get married, unless you're rich, because that changes stuff. But if you're just the average man, but you look like, for example, a Cam Newton, most women are only going to sleep with a Cam Newton type dude if they know that they're just trying to have sex, because they already know his body count's high, right? And they already know it's a bunch of women sleeping with him, so they don't really want to deal with that in the relationship. Whereas they would find a dude who looks a little bit less muscular, a little bit more nerdy, is a little bit more awkward, and they would run to him and be like, all right, cool, I'm about to give the V-Box to this dude because they feel like he's a safe man. That's how women date. That's how they've always dated. The only time that really changes is if you're dealing with Black and Hispanic women who sometimes, a lot of times in those cultures, they might be like, if I'm not sexually attracted to the man and if don't no one else want this man, then I'm not going to be with him. I'd rather be by myself than be with an undesirable man. But in most cultures with most women, it's not like that. You know, like in most cultures with most women, they're purposely looking to get with a dude who does not have experience, so they make them easier for him again to be a safe man and for them to keep that man around. So women don't really even worry about body counts. They already know how that goes. Now I will also say this. Even though I would never give a woman advice to date a man with an astronomically high body count, you also have to understand another reason why I'm saying a woman wouldn't even ask this question is because women know dating a man who has no experience. First of all, women don't desire to date men who have no experience. Let's just get that out of the way. Women don't go around looking for virgins. Men do that. A woman doesn't want to teach you how to have sex. She doesn't. She's not interested in that. A woman's not going to find a man. She's 20, she's 25. You know, she's 24. Hell, honestly, even when you're in high school and college, women don't enjoy teaching men how to have sex. They don't. Women like to be dominated, generally speaking. So what they want is when they try to give you the V-box, they want to be tossed in the air, thrown on the bed. They want their ass smacked. They want their cheeks to be clapped. They want you to know how to stroke. You know the rhythm. They want you to know how to do everything already. Women aren't going to tell you how to do it. One of the reasons a lot of women claim that they don't come, even though we've already discussed how this is a lie, but for the women that it's not a lie for, most of the time they'll be in a relationship with a man who's not making them come their whole life or for years, and they'll never even say anything. We talking about a gender that will literally sit there not coming and not say anything and just sit there not coming because they don't want to say, hey, you know, you don't know what you're doing, or I like it this way, or can you do that? Because they're worried about how the man will respond because of his ego. So for that reason, most women will give you a couple of chances to hit it right. And if you don't, again, unless your money is up or there's some other reason they will want to stay with you, they're just going to stop talking to you. They're going to stop talking to you. So should a woman deal with a man with a high body count? No. But should a woman deal with a man with a very low body count? Also no. There's a sweet spot for women, right? Where a man, he has some experience, but not too much. He can get women, but he's not like a player. And that's really what they want. You know, like a woman would be happy to find her a dude, like I said, not the most muscular dude in the world, not the most handsome dude in the world, not the most suave dude in the world, but also not completely awkward, you know, like not 500 something pounds, like just an average dude, you know, who's had an average amount of experience. Like say he's 25, he might have like 5 bodies. That's a good spot for women. You know what I mean? That's a good spot for them. So that's generally, again, when they're looking for a relationship, that's what they look for. He knows where the V-hole is at. I don't got to guide him to my vagina. You know, he knows where the clitoris is. He knows how to turn me on. He knows what to touch, what to pull. You know, he's got the basics down. Women don't want to teach men anything. Even if you talk to virgin women, I'm not lying. They've said it on this channel. Not only have I dated several women, but there's been virgins who have come to this channel and admitted this. A virgin woman doesn't even want to be with a virgin man because women don't desire men who don't know what they're doing. They just don't. Your best chance of that being accepted really is middle school, high school, and college. But even then, a lot of women will make fun of you for not knowing what you're doing. A lot of men have experienced this before. So, you know, and I'll give a quick story time, very quick. But one of my friends, he had the traditional look of a man who probably should have gotten a lot of women. So women made that assumption, but he did not. He didn't get a lot of women. He had like one girlfriend his whole entire life, or whatever the case may be, right? So he gets in a relationship with a woman, and this woman is a thought box, but he didn't realize she was a thought box. But either way, he's in a relationship with her. She's treating him good, letting him beat it raw all the time and stuff. He's having a good time, or whatever the case may be. Now he ends up getting her pregnant, and when he starts to come outside with her, he realizes that she knows a lot of dudes. A lot of dudes that he knows, a lot of dudes that he don't knows. But he starts to realize she's dated a lot of men. Like she's dealt with a lot of men to him. Now, at the time, she told him her body count was, I think she said like 15. You know, you got, generally they say multiply by 3. I generally say at probably 1.5 is a little bit more accurate. Because I had her body count, even when he told me that, probably like 20, 25. You know? But either way, you know, for him, that was a lot because at this time, his body count was probably like 3. So what happens is, and women notice, men get an ego. So a man's not really going to want to tolerate being in a relationship with a woman, and that woman has more sexual experience than he does. You know, like he's not really going to want to deal with that. She's not, gonna want to tolerate that, because what's gonna happen is he's gonna feel like that's an affront on his manhood. Then he's gonna start thinking that his girl is a hoe. Now, I just said earlier, at this time when this was going on, his girl was probably like 28, and he's probably like 26, 25-ish. And so to me, a woman who's got like a body count of like 20, 25, yeah, she's a thought, but I wouldn't consider her like a deviant. And she was being loyal and everything because she already had her fun. She had her experience. So she was ready to settle down. Plus, she was about to become a mother. But in his head, he couldn't get past like, yo, you've slept with all this. You guys got to understand. A man who's only slept with like 5 women, right? 5 women is going to look at a woman who slept with like 20, 25 men as an ultra slut. Because he hasn't even slept with that many women, right? And in his head, men are more sexual than women. I keep telling you guys that this is not true, but that's how it works in his head. So I'm saying all that to say the relationship started going south. Like, because he started digging into stuff and he started realizing that some of the people she slept with, she was still communicating with, like, on social media and stuff like that. And he just started to treat her different, and it started to go real downhill. It started to get real bad to the point where she even told him, like, look, we can have an open relationship if you want to get your experience up or whatever. But that just made him madder, because at that point he's just like, okay, now you're trying to play me. Like, you see what I'm saying? It's an ego thing at this point. So eventually they ended up not working out, right? And like I said, things kind of got real ugly. They were getting into bad arguments. He was calling her out her name and stuff, and it just got ugly, right? And that's just one situation that I noticed, but there's a lot more situations, a lot more stories I can tell you about things similar to that. But I'm saying that to say, again, would I recommend for a woman to date a dude with an astronomically high body count? No. But would I recommend a woman to date a man who her body count is going to be significantly higher than his? No, unless you can effectively hide it, which a lot of the times what's done in the dark comes to light. Eventually a dude's going to notice. If you notice, every dude. Every dude seems to be coming up to you saying hi and stuff. He's going to notice. So there's a balance in there. Because again, you have to worry about the aspect of, do I want to be with a dude who don't know how to please me? He doesn't have enough experience to know, and I don't really want to tell him because of ego. Also, do I want to be with a dude who I have way more bodies than he does? Most women have a good amount of bodies, guys. They sexual too, and it's easier for them. So there's a fine line in there. But most women already know most of what I just said, which is why I was like, most women wouldn't even ask this question, because they already know all this stuff for the most part. This is more so a question like a dude will worry about, because dudes don't understand a lot of the times the sexuality of women or how that works for them. But that's the answer to the question. I would not suggest a woman date a man with a high body count, but I would also not suggest that a woman date a man with an extremely low body count. It's a little more nuanced for them, right? So that's my thoughts on that, y'all. I am Alex, and I am out. Peace.